Johnny, is the press out there? Is the press doing its job, keeping the people informed? Well, I don't think they do, Johnny. It must be remembered that the role of the press is to ask our leaders the questions that you and I never get to ask them, Johnny. Right, yeah, we can't ask them the bloody questions. If we try to ask them a question, we'll get their bloody security guys on us. Just jump us and lead us away, so we don't get the chance to ask them bloody anything. It's all up to the press.
Right, yes, of course.
They're supposed to be asking the questions we can't ask them. Do you reckon the press has been doing a good enough job, Johnny? Well, I don't think they've been doing a very good job at all. There you go, you know, sometimes they ask the odd bloody uncomfortable question, but it's never followed up. Why doesn't someone just next door in the next chair say, hang on a minute, that's a shitty answer to that question, we're sick of this bullshit, when are you going to tell us some truth?
You can't handle the truth.
Now my good friend Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore Show on YouTube. Oh, good old Jimmy, although it's not Jimmy, it's that young Matt bloke. And a particular clip of this bloke asking a few bloody pertinent questions to this bloody politician.
I'm Aaron Maté, sitting in for Jimmy Dore here with the miserable liberal Steph Zamorano and Americans comedian Kurt Metzger, and we've been talking about the U.S. destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and how the U.S. media is not covering it, not covering the revelations of Seymour Hersh, the legendary investigative reporter. But people who are angry about this are confronting politicians about it, because politicians are also not asking the questions they should be asking. So one person who's been very vocal in confronting Democratic politicians on their support for the proxy war in Ukraine is Jose Vega. Here he is. He's been featured in a lot of videos confronting Democratic politicians like AOC and others about why they're fueling this disastrous proxy war in Ukraine. And here he is now going to ask Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the House Democrats, why he's not seeking answers about the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
The UN Security Council had a meeting yesterday, and Ray McGovern spoke to it. He is a former member of the CIA, and he testified in support of Seymour Hersh's article on the United States bombing Nord Stream pipeline. If it is proven that the United States bombed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as has been asserted by Seymour Hersh and his article, will you call for the United States to acknowledge and admit that that was an act of war against Germany and Russia? And I'm asking this because this may be the only way to prevent the rest of us from being killed in a thermonuclear war. And I don't want to be fried. Don't you think the media should be reporting on whether or not this is true? And don't you think you should be inquiring into whether or not this is true?
Well, thank you for the question. One, I've got no information to suggest that the United States was involved in bombing the Nord Stream pipeline.
Because you weren't briefed on it.
Sir, you have your chance to ask a question. So you give me an opportunity to respond.
You weren't given information because he explicitly says you weren't briefed on it. Shouldn't you inquire, sir?
So here's what I'll say about, I think, President Biden's leadership generally as it relates to the Ukraine.
He's not asking you about President Biden's leadership generally as it relates to Ukraine. He's asking you about this report from a legendary journalist that the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream 2 and whether or not you're going to seek answers for it.
And rightfully so, this bloody bloke gets pretty upset about it.
And Russia.
We committed an act of war. What are you doing to respond to that? We have to hold Biden accountable. So listen, you're from Brooklyn, right? You know when to call bullshit when you see it. So do I. This is bullshit right now. And I see what's happening right now. That does not silence me. You can hear me right now. I want you to say something about the bombing because...
Holy shit, he's getting into him. Yeah, he's bloody good, Johnny.
Because we're all going to die from a nuclear war right now unless you stop it and you at least put and inquire into whether or not it's true. This war in Ukraine is going to leave us all dead. So what are you going to do? Because you need to inquire. I'm a New Yorker too.
Here's what I'll say.
Say it.
We're going to continue to stand with the Ukrainian people.
That's fucking bullshit. Do not do that. You will end us all dead.
In this war against...
We need peace.
We're going to stand with the Ukrainian people. What he means by that is we're going to keep sacrificing the Ukrainian people to weaken Russia, which is the official goal of the U.S. proxy war in Ukraine. That's what he means when he says we're standing by the Ukrainian people.
We need talks.
Because
Why are you
it's not
sabotaging
just-
talks?
it's
Do
not
not put
just
your
a
hands on me.
battle between
We need
Ukraine
peace talks.
and
I am not
Russia.
going to take this.
It's a
We need
battle
peace talks.
It's a
You
battle
are leaving.
between
Listen.
democracy
Did you even read the
and
allegations?
autocracy. It's a
No.
battle between
How about
truth
accountability?
and propaganda.
Not
And
airheadedness.
it's a battle between
okay?
tyranny
How about
and
bridges, not
freedom.
bombs?
And democracy,
Okay? How about
truth, and
conversations,
freedom will
not
prevail.
Freemason?
And the United States is going to help make sure
Diplomacy,
that happens.
not destruction. How about that?
He said he's going to rap back at him?
He's doing the Hakeem Jeffries speech rap. Yeah.
You goddamn airhead, you're gonna kill us all! I don't want to die in a goddamn nuclear war, and nobody does!
There it is.
Now, can you imagine, Johnny, if every bloody reporter started doing what this bloke did, perhaps we'd get some bloody answers. Well, who would bloody... But no, it's all nice and quiet, and we'll just ask the questions that want to be asked.
In his remarks, former CIA agent Ray McGovern called out the media for smearing Seymour Hersh and for not covering his report or even just covering the denials by the government in response to his report. He also called out the CIA for its record of lying to the public.
It was 2 weeks ago. Has the New York Times mentioned Cy Hersh's article? Has it even reported the denials? No, not yet. This is quite, the Germans would say, merkwürdig. This is very, very remarkable.
Right, well, I'm not sure anybody cares enough, Johnny. We seem to be the only bloody people around here who care about this sort of bloody thing, and it's...
There it is. Hakeem Jeffries being confronted. Here's Max Blumenthal. This is what all anti-war activists should be doing, hounding these tools across the country, giving them no quarter. Because the U.S. media is not asking the minimal questions of our elected leaders.
Johnny, it's not just the US press that's shithouse at this. The Australian bloody press is woeful. And I dare say the press in France, England, Canada and every other fucking country is just as bad. Yeah, well, if a few more spoke to the bloody leaders like that, maybe we'd get some fucking answers.